3 hams will certainly kill him. 3 hams.
Hello and welcome to the Catboy Rants. Today, I'm just going to go ahead and take a few moments, talk about a few things that are coming up and coming out, as well as, of course, a little tidbit about what I'm doing right now. Right now, other than, of course, the comic, I am doing these videos, and I am continuing a RPG that some friends of mine decided to start in college. Basically, what we're using is BESM, Big Eye, Small Mouth, Tri-Stat, Guardians of the Order formula. It's working pretty well. I've got a good party, and I'm the GM, since it's my game. Well, our game. So, to give you a gist of it, and just to give you as much information as I've given my characters, you have the world, which is a giant continent surrounded by water. Now, this continent is a little bit bigger than the continent of Africa. And you can see, and I'm going to post up here in just a few moments, the map. Now, on that map, there's a few key points. I want you to bring up basically the two main ones. One is Verdna, which is the big area in the upper eastern portion of the continent, near the big volcano-looking thing. And then the rest of the continent is basically like desert land. In the lower, in the southern part of the continent, down in the middle, that's basically like Gobi Desert death. Kind of, no life whatsoever. I mean, even then, no, not the Gobi Desert, the Peruvian highland desert, the one where even bacteria doesn't live. There's still people that live there, they do certain things, and you're probably wondering, well, why do people even live there? Well, the reason is because they're able to live there because in this world, there are people that use magic. What kind of magic, you may ask? Well, most of the time, you're going to have a wizard or warlock that is able to use ice magic. And you're probably thinking, well, why is ice magic so important? Well, ice magic is very important. If you have an entire group of people who living in a certain area that require water and there's no water to be found, how are you going to make that water? Ice magic. Most towns will have some sort of wizard or warlock or mage that will be able to go ahead and create an ice spire in the middle of the town. Basically like a well. The ice spire will melt, people will get clean water, and the only bad thing about this is magic causes what is called a rift. Rifts are breaks in space and time that open up when a person uses too much magic. Now you're probably wondering, well, why does that happen? This is why. The story behind the whole actual thing was that thousands upon millions of years ago, thousands of millions of years ago, there was 4 races that lived on this continent. Beastmen, which basically, if you want to think of a beastman, think of a furry. Basically think that. A person with bestial features that is humanoid. No, we're not going to have any centaurs, we're not going to have anybody who is, running around on all fours, or mostly, animal-like. No, it's going to be basically humanoids with bestial features. I mean, you could have a minotaur, but still. The humans, elves, and dwarves. Now, the main difference between these 4 was the beastmen, they went ahead and followed the god of the wilds. The god of the wilds created the first beastmen out of humans and elves. The god of light is the god of the humans. The god of magic is the god of the elves. And the god of invention is the god of the dwarves. Now, most of the time, the human and the beastmen kind of got along pretty well. Nothing really big happened. They weren't really causing too much of an issue. Yeah, there were some border conflicts, but other than that, fine. They lived together peacefully. Dwarves usually got along fine with beastmen and humans too. I mean, no big problems there. The beastmen and the humans usually bought a lot of their actual equipment that they made. I mean, they were master builders. And then you got the elves. The elves got along with the beastmen and the humans mostly, but they didn't like the dwarves. Mostly because what the dwarves could make with their technology, the elves were able to create with magic. And that was given to them by their god. Now the two races got in a heated battle over one thing, which one was better. Now the humans and the beastmen don't care because they share a common ancestor. So they kind of stayed out of it. This was a whole war was basically who was better. Now this war was actually instigated by both the god of magic and the god of invention, technology. They were trying to show which race they had created was better. So these two races fought. First it looked like the elves were going to win because they were using massive amount of magic. Yes, a dwarf can create a cannon, but an elf can go ahead and create fire that will sweep over that cannon and ignite it before it shoots. However, the dwarves found another piece of technology. A great piece of technology known as runes. Now you may be thinking, well, aren't runes magic? No, it's a type of technology that has not been figured out yet. Runes were created by the dwarves to act as magical resistance. They could create a rune of everlasting water, so you could have people that were constantly being hydrated. You could have a city in the middle of a desert that would flourish like no other. You could have a rune of growth, a rune of protection, a rune of life, a rune of ice, a rune of what you want. And they used these runes in their weapons against the elves. Now the elves demanded more magic. They wanted to get back at these dwarves. Why were they getting the ultimate power of runes? Something that didn't cost them anything, but was able to grant great power. So the god of magic said, I will go ahead and give you more power. The elves used more and more until finally they found a way to draw on the magic directly from their god. Not with going through channels or anything or casting spells, taking the power directly from their god. This happened with one big spell, one spell that was going to end it all. The god of magic was drained, defeated, and obliterated with one spell. Granted, this spell was cast by nearly every elf at the same time. The dwarves saw what happened. The sky went dark, the world began to shake, and rifts, tears in time and space, opened, and creatures came out that just devoured, poisoned the land with whatever they touched, and devoured everybody that they came in contact with. Through that rift came another god, a god of chaos and treachery. This god sent its minions out across the land and told them to devour, kill, destroy. The elves, seeing what they had done, tried to close the rifts using magic, but it only destroyed the barrier further. Finally, the elves worked with the dwarves to help save as many humans, beastmen, and other elves that they could. The dwarves were behind their citadels, in their locked keeps, and in floating islands. Several years passed, and the dwarves found that they couldn't really keep everybody together, so they used the power that they had to make an ultimate rune. They worked themselves so hard that the last dwarf died creating the ultimate rune. This rune then was powered up using the blood of the last dwarf, and it was ascended into the sky. A huge continent powered by one ginormous rune. The continent itself had a name in the beginning, but it has been lost to history. Elves, in shame for actually being saved by the dwarves and realizing that they were the ones who instigated the destruction of the world, cursed themselves. Elves used to be able to live for millennia. However, they changed their lifespan to just normal 70 to 100 years. They turned their skin midnight black, their hair completely white. They gave up magic, and they lived their lives in solitude and grief. No one really gave any thought to why the elves did it, other than the fact that they knew that the elves were the ones who caused the issue. So the elves were ostracized and basically outcasts. Beastmen and humans took what they could and eked out a life on the continent. They were lucky enough that part of the continent was still lush and green, and stayed that way thanks to runes found in the soil, runes of growth. There are several old encampments, old citadels, and ruins that spot this continent, as well as, of course, ghost towns from people that used to live there. My group started in a town in the lower lower western portion, the southern west portion of the continent, called Yolostra. In this, they joined up with a man who ran a nice little rune hunters guild known as Fortune and Glory. Now, this was actually brought about because Fortune and Glory was the name of the group that we started out with when I was in college. This was actually our whole thing, how everything had happened. Now, we didn't come up with elves or dwarves or anything like that. We just decided to have whatever you wanted. But damn it, I hate elves. So that's why it happened that way. I'm not racist, I just hate elves. Thank you, Tordek. Anyways, the group came, of the group there is a Minotaur, 3 cat ladies, 2 humans, and 3, another beast person, a bear person. They started out. They followed a wagon train, because what they had to do is they had to find either a mage, or they had to find a water rune to bring back to a desert town, because their mage had died. At this point, they are in what is known as the town of Sighs. In the town of Sighs, there was a bandit known as One Arm. One Arm was killed in a battle with one of the humans, who used his bow and arrow to shoot at One Arm's gun. Now, One Arm the reason they called him One Arm is because his gun was a summoning weapon. Now, those of you who have seen Final Fantasy Unlimited, think of the summoner there, his gun. How he has to use 3 bullets to shoot off one thing. That's what this works. So he can't use that arm. It's basically there. Now, when he shot, the arrow went into one of the barrels, caused it to explode, because he was using all fire, and it basically vaporized him and the rest of his men. The next thing they saw was the summoning weapon land in the crater that he used to be in, and then it opened up, let go of his charred arm, and then closed back up again. The Minotaur took that and made sure nobody grabbed it. That's where we're at right now. They've met up with 2 more humans who have decided to join the party, mostly because when you're a rune hunter, and this is a thing, when you're a rune hunter in this world, you get certain stipulations when you're working as a rune hunter. Mostly is sometimes the law will look away from what you're doing, and this is because in certain places they have different laws. So if, say, like in the town of Sighs, if our characters went there, One Arm was the sheriff, but he was a dick, and they killed One Arm, and the marshal showed up and asked what happened to the sheriff, they could say, well, the sheriff was actually a bandit, and he ruled the town with an iron fist. The marshal can then look to make sure that they are rune hunters, and since they are rune hunters, they get those stipulations, and all they'd have to do is basically get other witnesses. Now, if they were not rune hunters, they'd be taken in and hung. That's the way it is. This is why when I was playing the game with friends of mine when I was in college, we were able to escape from a jail and not be, taken back to jail as soon as we got out to another town, or as soon as we got home, because everybody knew where we were. This whole thing came about when I was in college, and we thought about making something that we just absolutely love to do. And it was just a brand new game. Each one of us put something in, and by the end of it, we really enjoyed what we were doing. There were 4 of us, but 3 main. There was my character, who was a swordsman. There was a dragoon, a guy who had a big old lance, but it was basically like a gunblade lance, and a mage. Now, we all had our foibles, because that's the way we did our fun things. My character had a half-scarred body, thanks to being attacked by a demon when he was younger. He had a mask on one side, and the other side looked fine. He was also a drunk. He could only fight when he was sober. When the group found him, he was in rags. The only thing that was in pristine condition was his sword. He made sure to take care of that because that was something made by his father. Now, the mage was a person who was from Verdna, had a lot of learning, and knew that she could only use magic in extreme cases. And the dragoon was a soldier who had left the town that he was in due to issues with the regents of that town. We picked up other people, but it was never the same without those 3. I always enjoyed it. Now, before I let you all go, I will be giving you guys updates on what's going on. It won't usually take this long, and I do have to say I'm sorry for taking so long on one thing. But it is something I really like, and I'm working on something for you guys, a review of a movie that I saw long ago on Sci-Fi Channel, and then on KEBB Channel 60, which you've all heard me say multiple times before, was the channel to watch for anime. It's a cable access only. It's also where I got to watch a lot of MST3K. But KEBB Channel 60 was the place that I got to watch a lot of anime, and the movie was quite interesting. It was made by Harmony Gold, and almost all the voices in it were from, of course, since it was Harmony Gold, their main line from Robotech. And you can tell it was made in the 80s. The graphics show it was made in the 80s. And they made a sequel. Next week, we will be going over The Lensman, The Secret of the Lens. I hope you all have a strong stomach, because it's kind of bad. Yeah. So, till next time, y'all enjoy a great weekend. I'm sorry I didn't have a video posted for y'all on Tuesday. I was busy. But we'll see you. Keep reading the comic. Tell me how you like it. Bye.
Time for go to bed.